New York's such a diverse city, I feel like people would be really educated and like would want to vote and have a say. So that's something that really surprised me.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Sabrina. I wasn't here last week or last month, so nice to meet you all. And I was also really surprised by like the 16.4%. That's our youth turnout. Because again, because New York is like so liberal and like mostly educated, I thought it'd be higher. And I was also really surprised that they only made all these reforms in 2019. Like I would have thought they made them so much more before because we're such like a liberal and progressive state.
Yeah. Everyone's gonna go. So who's next to unmute?
I guess I'll go. Hi, I'm Jelena. This is like what everyone's saying, but I was also really surprised about how faulty the New York voting system was and how low the voter turnout was for youth because, like Sabrina said and Angana said, I consider New York to be a very liberal place. I consider us to be a very educated state, and it was just very surprising. But yeah.
I'm Paula, sorry. I honestly wasn't really surprised because I know that outside of like New York City, like the five boroughs and maybe Long Island, New York upstate is like pretty hardcore red, and like the kind of things that like happen in different areas of like upstate New York don't really represent the way that New York City functions. So I wasn't really surprised by like what I guess you guys are calling quote unquote like a messed up system. I feel like it's just like um a more Republican friendly system, I guess. Um, yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of sad, the fact that I wasn't surprised. Like, I feel like I had so little faith in, like, a system working.
I'm glad you brought that up because now that makes sense. I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
New York State, someone just said, like, the amount of Trump flags, like, in Long Island on the 495, there was, like,
Yeah.
3 Trump parades, like, last week. And, like, anyone I know that lives upstate, they're all, like, Trump supporters. And, like, living inside the city is crazy to think that, like, we're so blue, but New York
The
State
second you
as a
leave, it's
whole.
like, yeah.
Yeah, which is like a lot of people are saying that there's a chance New York could turn red because the five boroughs are the only like majority blue place now, which is a little weird. I don't know.
Yeah, like I'm staying in Long Island right now, and there's like a huge Trump parade where they like all just like paraded through the town near me. It was crazy.
Yeah, got it.
I'm Michelle. And something that was interesting from your presentation was that how youth voter turnout has increased from the past election. And like you would think that youth would vote more because we complain the most about things, but they don't. But this year, we've seen that more youth have voted.
Okay, so my name's Priscilla, and the thing that I was most surprised about was about the fact that there was sabotage going on when people were trying to vote. I mean, I wasn't really surprised about it because I know that there's like our systems are messed up. People from like mostly Republican states, they try to sabotage the Democratic. But I didn't know that it was that like they're really going out there to go and close down Republican. So somebody said that like it'll be 9 polling sites, but then all of a sudden there'll be 2, and it's like that is really messed up that we're so like liberal, and it's like we're going through all these problems when we're like America's supposed to be great and stuff. So yeah.
Hello, my name's
Oh, sorry.
Right. Okay, I'll go. So I was kind of furious at how our schools don't emphasize this kind of awareness on how our democratic institutions are flawed, and they kind of just teach us like the basic, the Constitution, the founding fathers, our ideals, but they don't really tell us how our system is in many cases not working or could be better.
I was also gonna add like to what Ivan, is it Ivan?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, yeah. What he was saying, like I saw a statistic that like a majority of students that are in the public education system in America don't have enough US history knowledge to pass a citizenship test. Um and I feel like that's also a big reason why there's a lot of like voter confusion, like Brie was saying, and why a lot of people don't really know how any of these systems work or how they're supposed to be voting. And another reason why like, I don't think that we should lower the voting age, because like if you can't pass a citizenship test, you cannot vote. You shouldn't be able to vote. And I think that that's a real, yeah.
Sorry. Justin, have you introduced yourself yet? Okay.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
All good.
I thought everyone had.
Justin, no, you're so perfect and you have such valuable stuff. I just want to make sure everyone can introduce
Yeah.
themselves first, and then we go into our activity, and then would love all of your pearls of wisdom because you're spectacular. But Justin, go for it.
Yeah, sorry. I'm Justin. I was really able to catch the meeting because I wasn't home, but the 5 minutes that I did catch, as you said, like voter confusion is like voter suppression. I thought that was like really smart because, especially like today, a lot of people are confused. Like how everyone's saying there's like misinformation. So that was really like interesting to hear about.
Yeah. Okay. So now, and I pasted them in the chat, right, just so everyone saw, but we're just gonna be talking about a few voting rights reform ideas that Bree circulated. So I'm gonna share my screen, which I'm really bad at, but it's going.
Wait, Paula, do you want to finish your thought?
Oh, I only had like one more thing. I was gonna say like, that it's a really big flaw in our education system that we don't know enough about voting, and like the same way that like students also don't know enough about like how to pay taxes and stuff like that. Like that's something that we need to work as the next generation to be in politics, to incorporate for future generations to be more knowledgeable about these things so that these issues of voter suppression are not happening in the future.
Yeah, no, I
Okay.
totally agree with you.
Dope. So now, can you guys all see my screen? Please tell me you can.
Yes.
Okay, incredible. So I'm obviously like this is a lot of words and everyone reads at their own pace. So I'm just gonna like spend, let's just call it like 40 seconds on each. You can skim it, but these are talking about I swear I can count the many voting rights reform ideas, so you guys get a sense for it before we just engage in a conversation about which we think are the most important or necessary in New York as far as promoting the vote and youth voter turnout. So
We can like read over all 8 of these and we can choose 5 of these to discuss.
yeah, but I'm gonna say just like take your own 45 seconds. We can all go on mute and I'll just move the button, the scroller down because we don't need to hear our voices. Sick. Is that okay with everyone? Does that work?
Sound good? All right.
I just have like a very quick question. So I'm on my phone right now and I want to like switch to my computer so like it's a bigger screen. If I like leave and come back, will Sanda put me back in the breaking room or should I just stay?
I think you're fine. You can go off. Honestly, my advice is maybe stay on both. Stay on your phone, try to go on your computer, and then come. You know what I mean?
You can
Yeah,
go
got it. Thank you.
just chat stand and she'll put you in the breakout room.
Okay, I'm scrolling down.
Hold on, I'm gonna leave my room for like 2 quick seconds because there's like food in front of me that's making me nauseous. So I'll be back.
You're good. Go ahead.
Okay. Do we feel like we have a general sense of all of these?
There's one that I missed. Could you hold on? Yeah, I think it's those. I didn't even read the topics. I'm sorry.
You're all good. Don't worry. Give it another 10, 20, 30 seconds. Okay. Hi, we're gonna come back together. If I can figure out how to get this to work, which I seem unable to do because I'm terrible at Zoom. What?
Olivia, just a small comment. I can see your comment app on your thing. Good luck.
Oh, thank you. Wait, I'm like, how do I unshare? I'm so sorry. Oh, stop share. Thank you. Wow. Yeah, that's
I
so.
know it's really hard. I just wanted to give you some encouragement.
Thank you so much. Everything sucks. But I submitted, so that's something.
Yay!
Happiness is a low bar these days. Pending rejection. Let's go. Okay. Fun. Thank you. I appreciate that. So I think everyone should like go around and generally talk about, I mean, like we have like charts and stuff, but I think it's just like an organic discussion, and then like people just like jot down notes if you feel like something is really, really important. Because we don't have that much time. I think we have until like 3, right? Oh, so we actually do have like a decent chunk of time. But any ones that, and I remember all the options are in the chat, so you have them. That stood out to people as like, I think this is a really, really significant reform that we should enact right now. Like if everyone had like their one choice and like what you said was going to be enacted and made into a law and put into the system and put in place like, right now, what would everyone say and why?
Mine would be to broaden the types of IDs that you can bring to a polling station. Like, for example, if you go to a college, you can use like your student ID instead of like a license. Because though I think it's really important to use voter ID, only having like the ID that has like the star on it, is limiting to most people, and it is a type of voter suppression. So broadening the types of IDs that you can use would be a great way. Also, like high school IDs for 18-year-olds who are still in high school.
Yeah. Do you think that there are any potential drawbacks to that?
Possibly. A lot of people could like forge IDs. But I think within that like idea, there would obviously be like different ways to make these IDs more secure. Maybe putting like certain barcodes on them or having like pins attached to them, things like that, so that only you would know specifically how to use your ID, things like that. Or maybe making it like an online ID that like is only on one device. For example, like you could only put it on your phone, things like that, maybe.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So you'd say, like, with that potential drawback of the potential for voter fraud, we should just heighten security generally. Because I think that'd be a good thing. Anyone else want to share? I can share.
Yeah, like a major one that stood out to me was like lowering the voting age or just like poll workers. And I understand why a lot of people can be skeptical, but I feel like a lot of the issues surrounding, especially like local governments and like the federal government, they're all like kid-based issues. And like what brought to my head was like the District 2 priority in New York. Like for so long, people have been fighting it, but it's not really people have been fighting it. It's just like adults have been fighting for it. And it's like, it's a kid's issue. So maybe if you had more of a youth representation, then there could actually be like you would know this like an actual experience, like firsthand experience of the problem. But I definitely like see the argument against it because some people might not be educated, but I feel like maybe if you had like a class in school about it, or I feel like in today's age, a lot of kids are more politically active at such a young age.
Yeah. Paula, I know you had some pretty strong feelings against lowering the voting age, so do you want to just push back on anything Justin said?
Um, kind of. I feel like in most states, 16 is like a sophomore in high school. And when I think about me being a sophomore in high school, my priorities were not who's going to run for president, whether or not abortion is a human rights issue, whether or not there should be gun reform. Like, I cared about going to parties, like having a cute boyfriend or something, and like passing my classes, right? And I know that there's a lot more activism now than there was 2 years ago within our generation, but I think that there's so much room for failure with allowing 16-year-olds to vote. I think that potentially, in a couple years, maybe a decade, we can form so much, like classes and ways for students to get involved in voting that the voting age being 16 would be like, oh, that, duh, it should be 16. Like, they're educated enough. But like right now in today's political climate, I do not think that most 16-year-olds are like politically educated enough to like, or have the right priorities even. Like, a lot of people's priorities are not like things that are actually important to other people with like rights, or like their rights getting taken away. So I don't know.
That's a good point. Like, just a minor thought. In most school curriculums, when you're 16, you haven't even taken like American history yet, so you don't know like jack shit about America and like voting and all that shit. And maybe I don't know, maybe if you do want to like vote when you're 16, maybe there can be a thing where like you have to take a test to gain like voter, like your voter card or whatever, like how you get your permit, your license starting at 16, and something like that.
That's a really great idea. I hadn't even thought about that.
But
You could say the same about adults.
yeah.
Like, I know a lot of people, especially adults, who don't even know when America was founded. Like, you can say the exact, like, the argument, like, I understand, like, saying that I'm not 16 yet, I'm 15, so saying that I can vote in a year, or saying that my brother can vote at, like, he's 17, that even seems like a little weird, but I just feel like I know, compared to my mom, who takes, like, political classes, like, I've done the same thing, and so have a bunch of my friends who were 14 and 15. So I feel I actually agree with the thing that there should be maybe a test or some way to get it, but the whole thing about how we're not politically educated, which a lot of us aren't. A lot of us aren't. You can make like the same argument for adults.
Yeah. Let me just run this idea real quick. All right, Jolene, you wanted to say something?
Oh yeah, I'm so sorry. I keep cutting people off.
You're good.
But one thing I have like a problem with the way our society, specifically our politics, exist in the United States right now is that people think that once you become of legal age, all knowledge is bestowed upon you. Like, no, if you couldn't pass the citizenship test in high school, you can't pass it once you graduate high school because you didn't learn it. You didn't learn it. You don't all of a sudden know it because you're an adult, and that doesn't automatically make you eligible to vote. So I definitely think possibly for 16 and 17, a test should be created, but not necessarily to test knowledge. I think it should be more to test maturity, because like Paula said, like I personally am I'm a sophomore in high school right now. My priorities are 100% gun control and how abortion is a healthcare right, but I understand that is not where everyone is at. But I don't know. I think it should test for maturity instead of education level, because I think, like Justin said, the same could go for adults as it can for teenagers.
But if you're really mature, because like in your house, like you have to take care of like your siblings, for example, and you have a lot of maturity on how to handle adult issues, doesn't mean that you know the ways that these issues will affect people if you don't educate yourself. I feel like it's both, like the test should definitely measure maturity as well, but I feel like knowing solid facts about issues, like the statistics of a certain issue, or like history on how things have gone previously in America, is very important, because even as an adult, you can be the most ignorant adult, and you should know that.
Well, I just wanted to jump in quickly here, and just say, like, you guys keep alluding to this hypothetical test, but could you ever think that this is just a new form of voter suppression and putting a monopoly on educational level and literacy and like civic education? Because there's plenty of people in America, right? Like, we are so fortunate, all of us coming from these really good schools, whether public or private, in New York State. But there are people in all parts of this country that are just not as privileged as we are as far as education goes, right? And so don't you think that like it's really easy for us to stand on our soapbox and be like, well, we should all be able to take a test to be an educated citizen, but that's really just creating a new form of voter suppression that isn't totally based on racial lines or totally based on income, but kind of it is at the same time? Like, do
I
you
feel like
mind?
yes and no, because it's not like we're saying like only if you pass this test you can vote. Like if you're over the age of 18, you can just vote, right? If you obviously meet all the requirements that like are met for you. But like I feel like voting at age 16 should become more of like a privilege than a right, right? Like I think that voting is a right, but at age 16 it doesn't necessarily have to be, especially now. Like if you can pass the test, there should obviously be like maybe programs to help people pass the test, like the same way that there's like free SAT resources online, free 16 like age 16 voting test, practice test, stuff like that, resources for people. But I think that the test is a great idea. I understand what you're saying about the voter suppression, right? Like kids whose schools don't focus on civic engagement obviously are at a disadvantage, but like not everybody has to vote at 16, and I think it should be considered a privilege for those who have the accessibility and those who are willing to make the right decision for the greater good.
I don't think the test would be a good idea because I think that if voting is like a right, you can't be giving it to just certain people and denying it from other people. So if you're gonna put it at 16, it has to be across the board. And if we're agreeing that like a lot of people aren't educated enough, then it should just stay at 18 where it currently is. And then also, I think that it said in it, like if it's just New York, we can't make it like they're voting for like president or like voting for national issues. So if it's just like local and state level, I feel like people my age, like I know, like I don't know that much about like people that are in my state government or my like or just like in the city representatives. I feel like we as a generation know a lot more about like presidential, national level stuff. And if we're being forced to like vote on just like representatives for our neighborhood, we don't know as much about that or like care as much about that as on a national level. So like I think that's another part that would impact whether it should be 16 or 18.
See, I
Yeah.
see your
Oh,
point,
sorry.
but going back to what Pal said, like if you're an American citizen, we all can vote. Like having the 16 thing is just an option. Like if you want to study for it, if you really think you're prepared and just want your voter, like, if you want to vote early at that age, you can. I think they should have programs to like, help you out. But like saying that it's like, I definitely understand the voter suppression argument that that was a really good contestment, but that's kind of saying that like having your permit earlier than other people is kind of, I had the analogy in my head when you were talking, but do you guys get what I'm trying to say? Like,
Yeah,
that's kind of saying that, like,
permits because they passed the test. That's not surprising.
it's kind of saying that that whole system is unfair too.
No,
But
but I
it's like, if you know the knowledge of driving and all that stuff, you can have your permit that early and like, start your journey on getting your license early. It's just about, it's your choice. It's your option.
Yeah, but like if
driving
I like
isn't
understand. Oh, sorry. You can go. No, you can go, Sabrina.
I just don't think that driving is equivalent to like putting the hand like democracy into the hands of like 16-year-olds. Like driving a car is a very different thing than voting.
No, I know, but I'm just saying it's like, it's kind of like you're obtaining like the right to do something. With the voter thing, it's even, the analogy makes more sense because it's like with voting, we all can vote. Like obviously not everyone, like obviously with driving, when you turn 18, you can't just get a license, you have to go through a process. But with voting, we all have that right for an American citizen at 18.
I feel like what she's trying to say is kind of the idea that like if you're using the idea that like giving an option to a younger group is like suppression, then like for example in New York, like if you don't take driver's ed before you're 18, you can't drive with a the junior's driver's license in the five boroughs, right? Like you can say that that's like driver suppression because like what if I don't have access to a driver's ed class? I don't have access to driver's ed, but it's an option that like is there, but when you turn 18, if you already have your license, you can just drive. It's fine. It's not like anyone's telling you that if you don't do this thing at the beginning, you will never have the ability to move into the further steps. Like if you don't pass the test, for example, when you're 16, or if you don't have the ability to take it or practice for it, that's fine because when you turn 18, your right will be right. There you go. You can vote. Like that's fine. It's not like we're saying you should take a test from the time you turn 16 till eternity to see if you're eligible.
Paula,
Yeah,
do you
something
have
that
an
like I'm looking
argument?
at. I'm sorry.
So, no, I was just going to pose something to Pal, and then Justin, you can go for it. But do you think that your argument falls apart in the fact that, to Sabrina's point, democracy is based upon voting and not upon driving, right? Like voting is the most fundamental right, hypothetically, of every American, um, given the stuff we talked about before, and driving just isn't, right? Like it's almost like currency.
I don't know if I understand. Like, do you mean like that you think like voting is more important than driving? Like the right to vote is more important than the right to drive? Is
Yeah,
that what
I
you're trying to
just think
say?
that by trying to compare voting and the earning voting hypothetically when you're 16 to 18, as opposed to just having that right when you're 18, right? Some litmus test or something, right? You just can't compare it to getting a driver's license because it is fundamentally too different.
Wait,
I completely understand the argument. I feel like this is more kind of like an opinion that I hold. I completely understand the voter suppression idea because it's like what happened with literacy tests a really long time ago. The reason that I don't think it's the same, like, I don't think it's like, I don't think it's voter suppression in this sense is because like 16 will not be the default, but an option, right? Like, and I guess maybe this is an opinion and like, I understand like that you guys disagree with it, but I don't think that like voting should be a privilege at such a young age because again the risk of uneducated voters, like even adults now, the percentage of people who are uneducated voters or vote because like someone's like vote for Bernie, vote for Biden, vote for Trump, and they're just like vote for that person is very large. And I feel like having this test or having a foundation for this to be for something to be created, maybe not a test but like just some type of like something to cross to be able to get a privilege to vote at a younger age will also then in the future limit uneducated voters because you already took civic education earlier. And I completely understand if you guys disagree because I see the other argument. I just personally think that like it's not voter suppression if it's just a test before you're 18 and then after that it's not.
Yeah, Justin, you were about to say something before I cut you off, and I'm sorry for that. Want to say anything or just unmute
No,
it?
that's totally okay. I just wanted to like, I was actually like, when I heard the idea of the test, I was like, oh yeah, that's a totally valid argument. Like, if you're smart enough, you're educated, you're mature enough, you should be able to vote a little earlier. But like Paula, she brought it up, the literacy test that was in the South during the 1800s, that sort of brought like to my attention all the, like Olivia, how you mentioned all like the ways that could be like racially and economically biased because like I have the privilege, I'm taking AP World History this year and AP US History next year. So I'm not only going to know how world governments work, but how the American government works by the time I'm, 16 and able to vote or theoretically able to vote. But I know my cousin, he's not able to vote. And I know a lot of kids who are going around who are racist and like guns and want guns for like schools. Like, and I can't imagine them voting for our country. And I think the analogy of the car, it's less about the car and like the car itself, more of the fact that if you're smart enough, you're able to get it early. But the point like Olivia brought up, it's not about driving on the streets. It's about human rights, civil rights, and anything that goes on in this country, warfare, anything. So, like it's like a part of me, it's like split. Like I would like the good and the mature people. They can still be Republicans, Democrats. That's totally fair. But like I would like the mature and the people who actually don't just believe in killing the minorities to vote. And
also say, Justin, just like let's try to consider our own biases here too of like what you consider to be mature, because I feel like your consideration of mature is probably very different than someone with very different political views than you in a different geographic location. But yes, continue. I love what
no, I understand. That's why like I brought up like Democrat and Republican. I just feel like there should, like, for the driver's ed test, you have to get above a 30. I might be wrong. I'm just like saying that there should be like a line somewhere. If you had a theoretical test for you to vote, it's just there could be a lot of like problems with that. So you have to determine, is the problems, are they going to outweigh the good? And in some cases, I don't even think they will.
Can I propose like a question maybe? It's like the voter suppression idea. If there was maybe programs that were free or super cheap for anyone to take civic engagement courses when they enter high school to prepare for an exam where they can begin voting at 16, and it would be available in like as maybe like well, definitely more common than DMVs because DMVs are not that common, but just available maybe in high schools, given by like organizations who work for that, would that be a way that you guys would think like that suppression would end? Or do you still think it would apply
The more I think about the voter oppression argument, the more I understand it. Because now that I'm thinking, it's like, okay, I have to understand my own biases because I have not always been in the best financial state, but I've always went to good schools, and that's because of the privileges I've been given in the areas I live in. But not everyone, one, has access to these certain things in schools, and even if these programs are placed in low-income schools, it's not just about the school itself, it's about the lifestyle of the person taking the test. So for example, I don't have any siblings that I need to take care of. I don't have to work right now because I am at a good financial state in my family, but there's plenty of other kids. For example, my mom had to work when she was younger, take care of her younger siblings. She wouldn't have time to take a test like that. It's not just about access to the class, it's about ability and the way it fits into your lifestyle. So I think that would be inherently classist in a way, no matter where it's available.
I
So
feel like with that argument though, like you can go as far down as like you can. I completely understand. I think it's true, and like I am kind of like becoming more like against the test, I guess. But like we can push this argument down to the furthest point possible, and someone would still always not benefit from it. And that's like something that we need to understand as like very privileged American citizens who live in New York and who have access to technology, Wi-Fi, mostly transportation. I'm gonna assume most of us and like ways to do these things that we would want to do most of the time, maybe not. Like we can push an argument as far down until the last possible person fits into the spectrum, but like we can't fit every single person into the spectrum as much as we want to. And that's something that I've really come to understand in my past like year of like learning about politics and political activism, that like we have to try to encapsulate as many people as possible, but it will never be everyone, and we have to be able to accept that and work to create, after we get a bigger bubble, then create a bigger bubble within that bubble to try to encapsulate as many people as possible. But if we just keep pushing an argument until every single like subset of individual conditions is met, we'll never come to a consensus, and we'll never be able to decide on where the limit for things should be set, you know?
Oh, I think that's like a very powerful truth too, as far as like regardless of what legislation we push forward or any idea we have, right? It's never going to be totally absolute. That's how democracy works. Some people think that's a beautiful thing, right? Because we are so diverse and different, and some people think that it's a really dangerous thing. Um, Switching gears a little bit, only because we actually have to present to the group for the last 30 minutes. All the groups, I know, I'm sorry, have like 2 minutes to present. And I think we had a really fruitful conversation as far as, hypothetically, if we lowered the voting age to 16, but still wanted to overcome that thought of, people, immature voters, that we've all brought up. How I think we can just think for the next 10 minutes about how we want to present that argument and try to involve as many voices in the group as possible. So, who wants to kind of, I think, Paula, because this was your initial idea, was it? Do you want to maybe spend like 30 seconds of our 2 minutes kind of framing our idea of just like you saying, in our conversation, we talked about lowering the voting age to 16. Some people in our group brought up, the priorities of a 16-year-old are very different than that of the American adult potentially. And what we don't want to, create a generation or, allow for a lot of immature, unprepared voters. Even though there are a bunch of us that think we are mature enough to vote at this point in time, right? And so then you can mention your idea that you brought up, and then does anyone want to talk about the responses to the idea? Everyone had really brilliant.
I'm sorry. I was gonna say I have to leave a little early, so I don't know if like I might be able to talk like at the beginning, but I won't be able to stay the whole time because I have to like go help my cousin with something for school.
No, totally good.
So I don't know if I'm the best person to like hold the argument down.
No, you're
So I have
perfect.
to leave.
I'm not sure if we're the first group to speak or the last or anywhere in between, which is super helpful.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like I don't know if you want me to like hold down the argument because I might have to leave, and then like
All good.
maybe I would just pick someone else so you guys can get the point across the best. But thank you.
No, only because like I don't want anyone else like to take intellectual property for anything like you brought up. No, totally.
No, you guys can totally take my intellectual property. I give all the rights. They're signed off. Like any ideas.
Does anyone want to?
Over?
What?
I'm saying, does anyone else want to present if Paula can't?
I mean, you really
Just,
want to put up the idea of the test where you're not.
Oh yeah, I was. I mean, like,
I think if anything to write would be yours, but if you don't want to, it's fine.
I feel like I want to give it to one of the fellows.
Yeah.
Just to like present.
Justin, how about you start, and then Jelena, you add like the second. Everyone is gonna speak, so
Second.
yeah. Okay, so Justin, you're gonna go first of just like outlining like kind of how we got to this idea. Jelena, I think you can go with like the most overt like criticism of it, right? And then Sabrina, Priscilla, and Ishal, do you guys want to just add afterwards like just more stuff that we talked about that pertain to the specific idea?
Yeah, sure.
You can all just kind of like add on to each other. No pressure. And I know speaking like especially in a Zoom group is like kind of uncomfortable and awkward and like a little bit like weird because it's just like people faces, but like I don't actually feel like I'm connecting or anyone gives a crap, like but it will be good, I promise.
This was a really good conversation, guys. Like I didn't think, like I just pitched like I don't even support lowering the voting age, and I just like pitched the test thing just to have it be not like if we were to do that, and we came up with so many like objections, contestations. Is that a word? That's not a word. Whatever. Arguments, all this stuff. Like this is really good. I cut someone off for sure.
Sorry, I was just wanting to make it like you guys could talk about like these are the possible like grievances that people could have with this, and like the way that you guys maybe you think even one or two of the issues could be solved, because I know a lot of people are going to bring up the whole voter suppression thing that Olivia first mentioned because it is a really important issue, but like I feel like someone definitely should talk about that because yeah.
We should outline our arguments and our objections and then have people respond.
I can like outline like everything that I can in 30 seconds, and then like Jelena, what you can do is sort of maybe argue for the fact that, oh, yeah, no, this is like we should lower the rights, but the test would be a bad idea. And then Sabrina, Priscilla, and if I pronounce this wrong, I'm so sorry, like Ishal, I think that's how you pronounce it, like can just argue anything that like me or Jelena missed or anything that you would like the rest of everyone to like know.
Yeah. Hi. Do we want to do like a practice? I just feel so weird and rudimentary, but like yes, we do want to do some practice. So I'm gonna put a timer on my phone, so I can do that.
I'm sorry guys, I have to go now, but good luck. You're gonna do great.
All right. Thanks, Paula.
Thanks, Bella. Awesome job. Good luck with your cousin and stuff. Okay, Justin, you're gonna go for it. I'm starting the timer now.
Yeah, so our group, we decided to focus on the rule of lower the voting age to 16. And in discussing how we can appropriately lower the age, we came up with the idea of maybe a test. And looking forward into the test, we sort of made a pros and cons list of how, what the test could eventually lead to many voter suppression increases, but it also could lead to maybe more mature and educated students to vote in their elections in their home and for the federal election. But we just talked about ways that it could actually cause more harm than it did good.
Yeah, so what we discussed were the pros, of course. Obviously, there's a bunch of mature, younger age kids, 16 and 17, that feel they would be mature enough, that are well-versed in political issues. But of course, the faults of this are the risks of overly immature and uneducated voters voting possibly too early because they just want to, because sometimes younger people have poor judgment. Also, with the test, the faults, of course, are, voter suppression, which would mean that, okay, so we were thinking about making a test, but not everyone would have the educational opportunities to pass the test. If we made a program, free programs throughout all schools to pass tests, not everyone could fit the time to take the course in their lifestyle due to different financial states, different family issues. So there's a bunch of issues with that. And then did we talk about anything else important?
Maybe someone can bring up like the car analogy, like Sabrina or anyone.
The driving.
Oh, the driving, yeah.
Okay, so something else we talked about was like how with a car, like when you turn 16, you can like get a learner's permit, and like if you learn enough, then eventually you'll be able to drive like before the normal age of 18. And we said like with a test, we could use that to vote at 16, and it would become like a privilege. However, we talked about how like voting is like a fundamental right of all Americans, and if you're just going to give it to select ones, that means that it's like not this freedom that all Americans have, and it should just be like across the board, because it's not equatable. Like democracy isn't equatable to like driving on a road.
Another argument that was brought up was that 16-year-olds aren't educated in political stuff, but that's like saying that all adults are more educated in political activism. But 16-year-olds can actually be more educated than an adult, which is why they should be given the right to vote with a hypothetical test.
Guys, we're at 2.5 minutes. But yes, let's make sure let's make our arguments a little quicker and more succinct. But yeah, Priscilla, I want to hear what you have to say.
Also, what I would like to add on is that we also discussed about, I mean, everybody already said everything, so it's like, should I just like wrap up and just like...
Yeah, I think you can just do like a quick reminder. Like, we just want to reiterate the fact that this test, like hypothetical, like, you know, to see if one could vote is for people between the ages of 16 and 18, right? Like the process of voting would remain the same for anyone 18 and above, but it would be an opportunity offered to people that think they're ready between the ages of 16 and 18.
Okay, so it would be like, so the hypothetical test would only be for it wouldn't be for throughout like 18-year-olds and up, but it would only be for 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds who think that they're well equipped enough or well informed enough or want to be more engaged in their political lives. And this is only for people. Yeah, this is only for people. Like, it's not for everybody. It's not like a requirement for everybody. It's for select people. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I would just frame it as just like wanting to remind you guys, right, that like we're only trying to amend the voting process for people 16 to 18, right? We're not changing anything for 18-year-olds. But I think you did a great job, right? And Sabrina, I like really liked your point of like talking about voting broadly, right? If it's going to be offered to some, then it has to be offered to all. Just in terms of equity and equality of opportunity, as well as equity and equality of outcomes. So I think when you're commenting on Justin's point right after Jolena, you might want to add that, because I thought it was a really valuable insight. But yeah, I think we're good to go. Everyone try to like make this like perhaps like 7 seconds shorter so we can fit the 2-minute situation. But I'm loving it. I think that was really, really awesome.
I think we did a really good job, guys.
Yeah, Sanda, for
What are you guys doing? Just out of curiosity.
We did a really deep dive into what happens when we lower the voting age to 16.
And how to put a lot of hypotheticals,
counter the
objections. It was really good.
the
Ooh,
argument
excited. Okay, meet you back in the main room.